Hey, changemakers. Thank you for tuning into the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. I'm your fervent feminist host, Raven O'Neill, and I get the honors of sitting down weekly with diverse experts from all walks of life to explore ideas, opportunities, and strategies that we can all use to hack our way to better lives within patriarchal societies. If you're ready to hack patriarchal systems and structures, I invite you to join us and help move the needle. In today's episode, I have the honor of sitting down with Lisa Hurley, a 3-time Anthem award-winning activist, writer, and podcaster. She's the author of Space to Exhale, host of Space to Exhale, the podcast, and the founder of The Great Exhale. A powerful voice, she has been recognized as one of the top 10 anti-discrimination activists worldwide. Her words have been quoted in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Adweek, and more. Please come together and give Lisa the warmest welcome. Welcome to the show today, Lisa. We are going to be having a conversation about your beautiful, gorgeous, soulful, sacred book, Space to Exhale. I want to start off talking about your writing process, how the book came about, and what that looked like. Because your book is laid out in a way, I had talked to other people about promoting your book, and I had said that the book is titled Space to Exhale. And so let me break it down. There are 3 sections, and each section has several chapters. So section 1 has 3 chapters, section 2 has 3 chapters, section 3 has 4 chapters. I got that right. And
I think you might know my book better than I do. I love that. I'm like,
And so within each chapter, you have it flows the same way. So, and you say that up front in the beginning of the book. There's an invocation, there's a recollection, which is really a story from your past that leads into how you're laying out the topic. And then you have a soft life strategy, and then an elevation, which is usually breath work of some sort. I felt as I was reading this, I was like, whoa, this is very meta of the book. I felt like each chapter was actually like breath work. You start out and it's like an inhale of an invocation and the story, and then an exhale of the strategy, the work, and the actual exhale breath work.
That is it.
Did you do that on purpose? That's what was going to be my question.
Is it. And yes, I wanted the entire, the book overall, obviously to feel like an inhale, then an exhale, but I wanted each chapter to be its own breath within itself, its own microcosm. And that's why, I say in the author's note or the introduction that each chapter can be read on its own. Readers don't have to digest the book in chronological order. The chapters stand on their own, but that is because each chapter is its own breath. Yes.
Nailed it. You nailed it, because that is exactly what it felt like. And I will admit, I had to do as I read, there were several times I had to go back, and I'm like, yes. Oh, there was something there that correlates, that was back there that I need to go back and look at. So I was actually going to ask how you might recommend reading the book, because you do say in the beginning that you can read it how you want, but is it best to, I felt myself going back and forth.
Okay, so there are, like I said, you might know the structure of my book better than I do, but in the 2 chapters that are about career, about curating your career, and about working while Black. So the working while Black chapter precedes the chapter about curating your career. Those 2, even though, again, they can be read separately, but they are sort of their own mini unit within the book. So they can be read separately. They're probably stronger if those 2 are read chronologically, but you don't have to. Readers still don't have to, because the working while chapter builds into, that is the chapter about, okay, here is why especially Black women need space to exhale, and it lays out the basically everything that we have to deal with in the workplace. And then the curate your career chapter follows the layout of all the other chapters in terms of, okay, well, here, as you put it, here are the soft life strategies, and here is how you can create more space to exhale within your career. Other than that, truly the book can be read, I think of it as a buffet.
You say that in the
So
book.
right. It's a buffet, and so it's up to you. It definitely isn't all you can eat, but you don't have to necessarily fill your plate with everything all at the same time. You go back every now and then. Today you take a prayer, tomorrow you take a meditation, the next day you read a part of the memoir portion, the stories from my life. And so people can just take the small bites that they want out of the book and ingest it, digest it, enjoy it, savor it in whatever way works best for them.
I love the term savor it. I am hoping that all of my listeners go out and buy the book. I read it again. My intention was to read it from beginning to end, and I found myself, especially in the second section, going
Yes.
back to your author's note and the introduction to look back at things.
Oh, tell me more. Tell me more about that, because I'm curious, because of course it's very different writing. When you're writing it, you are not you're not the target audience, so to speak, at that time, right? You're the writer, not the reader. So you experience the book completely differently. So I'm curious as to, like, if you have an example of something that you were reading that made you go back to the author's note or the introduction. And it's no problem if you don't. I'm just
No, I
curious.
do.
You
I
do?
do. And
Okay.
it is actually part of my next questions section. But it's funny because I also would say that I would come at it from a different point, because we're having this conversation. I'm going back because I'm going to ask you questions and I'm going to look at things. So if I wasn't going to have the opportunity to speak with you, I don't know that I would have gone back in the same way that I did.
Got
But since I did, because we are having the conversation, one of the things I continually looked back at is I feel you make your political stance very clear throughout the book. Now, in my questions, I was wondering, because you do talk about your writing process, you talk about, um, you know, in 2022, you and your sister are looking for publishers and a way to get it out there into the world. You talk about the political landscape. You talk about taking courses in 2023 to help you gain a publisher and get it out there into the world. And one thing that I didn't read, and maybe I missed it, was did the election in 2024 move it faster through your process? Because it is so timely. Everything about this book is divine intervention, not intervention, but divine timing.
my timing. Thank you.
The fact that it is so needed at this moment. But you do talk on the election of 2024, but I wondered as reading it if that had changed your writing process, made it faster, needing to get it out into the world quicker. What if that had an effect, and what it was?
So there was a time when I almost wished that the book had come out a little earlier, closer to the election, because as you said, I definitely felt and still feel like it is timely and it is needed for these unprecedented times. Actually, they're not really unprecedented, because there's precedent, just maybe in different countries, but that's not conversation for this show. But I felt like the book was timely, the subject matter was timely, the climate. There's just something in the air right now where I feel the book is necessary. So I had at some point wished that, it would be great if the book came out earlier. However, I wanted to respect and honor the purpose that I had been filled with, respect the assignment that I had been given. And as I think I said to someone sometime recently, I did not want to microwave my book. And so, yes, on the one hand, I thought the marketer in me was like, oh, if this could have come out, just after November 15th, I don't know, whatever, right? That would have been perfect. But I think it's actually come out at exactly the right time. But I wanted to take my time and make sure, slow cook my book, and make sure that the message was exactly what I wanted to say, exactly how I wanted it to be phrased, and that I put the time and the energy and the effort in to make it. There's no such thing as perfection, but I wanted to get as close to that bar as I could, because this is not a throwaway book. This is a book that you sit with, and I hope that people keep on their nightstands and bedside tables and in their home libraries, and go back to and get more familiar with and revisit and ask themselves questions and do all the exercises. That is my hope. And so, yes, could it have come out earlier? Absolutely. But I really think that it came out at the right time. It is divine timing. And I am happy with what is in the book and happy with how people have been receiving it so far.
Well, you should be proud. It is beautiful. When we first hopped on, I almost started crying just thinking about it. It was so good.
Thank
It's
you.
somehow this magical workbook. I had to like it's just so mindful, all of it. But you also tell these stories, and you do say in the beginning, you wrote this book with Black women in mind, but you're hoping that everyone takes something from it. You
Yes.
even set goals of who you want to who you hope will read it, but also what they gain from it. And it literally, the stories and everything that you put into it, it literally makes me want to cry thinking about it. It's that beautiful. So hopefully everyone listening goes and gets it. I can't recommend
Thank
it.
you so much. I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
When you say the book is beautiful,
Mhm.
can you expand on what you mean by that? Because, okay, so for example, a friend of mine posted recently that the book is a pretty book in terms of the cover, and thought went into that as well, like the cover counts and the fonts count and all of it. Thought went into everything. So there's that part of it in terms of the aesthetics, and there's also, I guess, like the content of it. But I want to know when you say the book is beautiful and that it almost brings you to tears, like what do you mean when you say that?
It was soulful. It was mindful. It was strategic. It like those things don't always come together the way it did. And again, I was going to dive into some questions. The question of how you came about the story, the format, because like we said previously, it is like breath work, but you were very mindful about that. And I feel like the content you put in about your experience growing up in Barbados to your travels to Nice to also, I think you worked in Nice. Now I
Yes.
know that you went to Nice and then, working in the US and then also touching on Black women's experience in the workplace. Like, if you are any kind of activist, you're gonna want to cry. Like, it's just, it is the perfect blend of that is my answer. It is soulful, mindful, strategic. And to me, that is just beautiful.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. I this is exactly what the kind of thing, the kind of effect that I was hoping the book would have, or the kind of reception that I was hoping it would have. Because yes, one, like, as a marketer, forget being an author, as a marketer, target audience is right there right up there with marketing 101. So did I have an initial very niche target audience? Absolutely. But it's broader than that, and it's wider than that, and it's more than that. And so to hear someone who does not look like me, right, have this reaction and say, look, girl, you wrote it for Black women, and you also wrote it for me because I received what you wrote. That means everything. That means absolutely everything. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. And thank you for putting it out in the world. It is, again, it's timely. It's perfect. It's divine timing. It dropped just at the right time. Um, let's move into another question I had, which I had just touched on. So again, you have the invocation, the recollection, the soft life, and the elevation. How did you decide on that process? Because again, it does feel like a breath. As a non-book writer, I wouldn't even know how to. I've had other authors on before, and we always talk about what that process looks like because each book is formatted differently, ideally to evoke the experience you are attempting to have the reader have. And you did a very good job of that. So I just wanted to look at what that process looked like. Is that how you created it out the gate? Or did you write and then reformat and be like, oh, there's a better way to do this?
So that's how I created it. And I created this structure. Okay, I'll give you a good example. So books typically start with an introduction, as mine did. And at one point I was reading it, trying to read it as a reader, not as the author, which is difficult, but I was trying to read it that way. And I thought, no, it needs to start more softly. Not everybody will agree with that approach. Some people might say, oh, just get to the point quicker, but it is not a get to the point kind of a book. I wanted the book to feel like an immersion and like its title, like an exhale and like a breath. And so it starts softly and it builds. And then at the end, and it literally ends, the epilogue ends, is a poem called, Why I Breathe, right? So it literally ends on a breath, on an exhale. And so that was very, very deliberate. In terms of each chapter, again, I wanted the chapters to start on a gentle inhale. So we're going to start with an invocation. We're going to start with getting our mindset right. So every chapter starts with an invocation and every chapter ends with breath work and meditations and affirmations and journaling and just ways to help people regulate their systems, calm their minds, feel more centered. So it is definitely deliberate. I came up with a structure. And it pretty much was like that from the beginning. It pretty much was like that. The only thing I added, and this, I mean, it was still relatively, sort of like midway through the process. The only thing I added was the author's note because I'm like, no, it can't start at the introduction. It has to start with a positioning statement almost. So that's why that's there, and also to lead people gently into it. There's a part in the book where I'm talking about the great exhale and how some people, one often receives criticism. And so some people were like, oh, it's too quiet in there, and I'm like, well, it's called the great exhale. It's not called the great adrenaline, and so like you don't go into, a place of worship or meditation space or whatever and then expect, house music and bright lights and all of that stuff. Right. So, and those have their place. I like the club like anybody else, but this is not a club book. This is a relaxation book. And so every single element of the book had to reflect that. And that is both it's from a writing perspective, from a branding perspective, from a user/reader experience perspective, right? Because I try to put myself in people's shoes. Okay, if I were in Barnes & Noble and I saw a book called Spaced Exhale, what would I expect? I'm not expecting, at least not initially. I don't want the harshness and the sort of like hyper manic energy. No, I'm expecting peace. I'm expecting breath. I'm expecting relaxation. And so that's what I attempted to deliver. It was very, very specific. And yeah, it was a plan.
You landed that plane beautifully because
Thank you.
another thing that I sometimes think of when a book is mindful and it is slow, because you say that it is meant to be this slowness, that it might not be captivating. And again, when I said beautiful, there is another point. It is slow but captivating, which I have to imagine is not easy to land that plane.
And that, oh my gosh, you're just like, giving me all these wonderful compliments, and I am ever so grateful. And so thank you. Writing can be very isolated and isolating. You're just creating worlds and words and experiences in your mind and hoping that people get it. And so to hear slow and captivating, that's it. That was the plan. That was the plan. I don't know if I had actually used those words in my mind, but that is exactly it. The book is also about slow living. So it should not be frenetic in approach. It literally shouldn't, because to me that would be a disconnect between, the title and the experience. The title and experience have to be in concordance, and they have to be in alignment. And so that's what I was attempting to do. So to hear you say that, that's absolutely wonderful. And the thing is, there are books, movies, whatever, for everyone. For example, there are sports that I don't enjoy because they're too slow, right?
Baseball?
I'm just saying. Didn't hear it from me, but maybe yes. Okay, moving
Heard
on.
it from me.
Right. But basketball, for example, for the most part, there's constant movement, they're up and down the court, there's stuff happening. And so, I would not call myself a big sports fan, but if I had to choose, basketball would be one of my sports because I want that kind of action. Right? With movies, for example, if I am watching while I do want the story to move forward, if I'm watching, a period, I don't know, Bridgerton or whatever, you want there to be, I don't want to use the word action, but I think you understand movement. You want there to be movement and progress, but it should not feel frenetic because culturally and in terms of the era, that's not what it was about. If I'm watching The Fast and the Furious, number 5,000, right? Can they stop, please? Anyway, you expect, it's in the name, Fast and Furious. And so there has to be a payoff, right? That's something I learned at the beginning of my copywriting career. The body copy must pay off the headline. And that carries through with writing and in so many areas of life, Determine how you're going to start and then be consistent and follow through. And so I am very happy that you received the book as in the way that you have, Slow and captivating is amazing. So thank you.
Feel free to use that in the marketing. I'm going to
I
use it in my
will.
marketing
I
on this
will.
end. Just to give a disclaimer for those tuning in, I love going to baseball games. I do not like watching it on TV. So you
Yes,
can't hate me for that.
exactly.
Moving right along in your process. Another thing that stood out to me was the intentionality in each chapter to cover a wide breadth of spiritual, sacred ways of exhaling, I would almost say. So I've not ever, well, I'd not say never. I've read some of the typical spiritual guru books where there is talk of, mantras, but you cover Hinduism, Sanskrit, and I might have butchered Sanskrit. I got to.
Sanskrit, yeah.
I have to look at my notes because I don't want to
Oh,
butcher the other two.
that's fine.
Ikigai.
Ikigai. I cover Reiki because I'm a Reiki master. I talk about Orikis, which is that's something that I learned about from Lavia Jai Jones, who is my book coach. And so my goal was, again, getting back to the buffet concept, my favorite concept. But everyone doesn't like plain white rice, and that's okay. There are times when plain white rice that's exactly what you need. But there are also times where you're like, okay, well, can I have some chickpeas? Can I have a little more seasoning? I feel like having chicken today, etc., etc. And so my goal was to introduce people. Some people will already be familiar with some or all of them, but those who are not, introduce people to breath work, to meditation, to orikis, to ikigai, to reiki, to all of it, to mantras.
Love languages. You covered that
Love,
too.
like there's a little bit of everything in there. And I could not have written this book. Could I have written hopefully a great book? Hopefully in my 20s? Probably because I'm a writer, right? I could not have written this book because I didn't know all the things, right? And there's still so much for me to learn, but in my journey thus far, I have learned so much. And part of what I wanted to do was impart some of what I have learned in order to help others, And again, for me, that transcends, race, gender identity, all of it. It is a matter of just human beings, however they identify. Here's some stuff that helped me. Hopefully it helps you. That literally is the book in a nutshell. Here's what helped me. I hope it can help you, and let's make the world a better place.
Beautiful. I now want to move into, hopefully it it brings out more of the book. I want to talk about some of the contents of the book.
Oh, please do.
Your goals were for it to be received by Black women and everyone else, but
Mm-hmm.
also for companies to feel what it is to experience workplace culture as a Black woman. And so looking at those ending chapters, how you came about choosing what to put in there, and also want the reader to feel and walk away from it feeling.
So, having been an activist online for a few years, something like I'm familiar with the kinds of questions that people ask. I'm familiar with sometimes the kind of pushback that one receives after posting certain kinds of content. And so I was bearing those things in mind when I wrote the Working While Black chapter. And there's a reason why also you will have noticed the what I call the scholarship in the book. It's there. It's not too heavy, but it's in there. And by scholarship, I mean there are references, there are citations, right? I refer to people's work. There's pages and pages of notes. And this is because it's important that for a chapter like Working While Black, yes, my personal experience counts, but it's important that there be data to support that. So that then when one receives the pushback, so I was both presenting the case and providing the response, the rebuttals to any potential pushback. That's part of what I wanted to achieve. So yes, here's what the glass ceiling is. Here's the data around that. Here's how we experience that. Here's the data around how many, the percentage of Black women whose careers are basically halted if they work on white majority teams. There's data around all of it. And the data makes it, people will still argue if they want to, providing the data makes it more difficult for a rebuttal, because I've literally said, here's what I've experienced. Here's what many people have experienced. Here's the data behind that. And so now what are you going to do? Because it's not just Lisa's opinion, which would be valid, but it's beyond, right? My opinion, my experience and so on, and my lived experience is definitely valid. But I wanted to take that chapter in particular beyond just my experience. And my hope is that I don't consider Space to Exhale to necessarily be a career book or a business book, but one's career, once you're a working functional adult, right? Your career plays such a huge part in your life. And so you can't really talk about having life-work balance without addressing the career element. And so part of my goal was to help Black women and really any other marginalized group, because yes, that's a lot of the experiences I talk about, not all of them, but some of them are unique to Black women. Some of them are more general to any marginalized community or any person with a marginalized identity. And so there is more general application as well. And I wanted companies to see and feel and experience and learn. This is, and that's what that chapter is called, like we're working while Black, learn, right? And so to really learn, this is what probably most of your Black and minoritized employees are experiencing. And here is how you can fix that or prevent it or turn the tide. So it's not just about revealing, it is about revealing an experience, or it's not just about exposition, it is also about solutions. And so that's what I wanted to achieve.
Because I want every listener to go out and buy the book, and without giving it too much away, and I think it was that chapter, you do a very good job of going through what it was like to work in the other places too, before working in the US.
Yes, it's okay if we talk about it, because that my identity, the part of my identity that is that of someone who grew up, I was born and grew up in the Caribbean and started my career in the Caribbean. That is a huge part of how the whole trajectory of my life really has played out beyond my career. But it has given me the unique experience of knowing what it is like to work in both environments, what it's like to work in a Black majority environment and what it's like to work in a white majority environment. And let me tell you, and the difference is absolutely stark. And it is frustrating and terrifying that, like, I'm the same person, but I am regarded completely differently depending on context. So usually, in the United States, I am my work in terms of my output, there's usually no, I do excellent work, right? I'm not saying I always get everything right, but I definitely, give it my all. And so my actual work is usually well received. Me personally, I get that, I'm too quiet. I don't socialize enough, that nobody knows me. And look, in some ways, depending on what one's career goals are, there are contexts in which those are valid, aspects of feedback, right? However, I didn't used to get so much feedback about my actual personality when I was in Barbados. I didn't get feedback or, negative feedback about my personality. I didn't get negative feedback about not wanting to drink alcohol all the time and go to happy hours. And also, a big part of the experience working in as a Black person in a white majority company or context or culture is that you are frequently immediately perceived as being deficient and being less than and being inferior to. And I was definitely not used to that. I grew up, I went to one of the best primary schools in Trinidad. I went to, at the time, when I went, it was a girls only school. That later changed, but I went to the best girls school in Barbados. I went to University of the West Indies, which is actually very highly regarded. Like, people that don't know, but honestly, colleges and universities here in the United States love to get students from the University of the West Indies, right? And from the Caribbean, because they're like, ooh, these ones, they are well educated, they are curious, their work is going to be excellent. They are probably, a couple of years ahead of their peers because the education system is so good. But that's not the perception. And so you get a lot of dismissal and disrespect as a Black person working in a white majority context that I certainly did not get when I was working in a Black majority country.
I mean, it was a juxtaposition, and we could have a side conversation on this alone.
That's a whole thing, right?
All day.
Yes, exactly. But what was it like? Sorry, what was it like for you reading that and seeing the juxtaposition? I mean, is that something that you'd ever thought of or had any experience of in any way? Or yeah, what was that like for you?
I don't think I would have ever thought about that experience, but I'll tell you what, reading it, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That absolutely, that, like, there's no need to doubt it. It's clear as day. I can see it, but I wouldn't have necessarily thought to think about it in that manner.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to include stories. That's why I say it's, part self-help manual, part memoir, part meditation guide. And the memoir part is that people need to know my stories and know that people, like, and I'm actually not unusual among my peers, right? Among my peers, I always say I'm decidedly average, I'm right there, I know probably 100 other people in the Caribbean that I went to school or university with or whatever, who are exceptional in multiple ways, who are bright and brilliant and well spoken and talented and cultured and crazy. Because we're allowed to be that too, and hilarious and all the things, right? We are a multiplicity. There are a multiplicity of aspects to our characters and personalities and achievements. But I am not unusual. Whereas I think in a white majority culture, I am perceived as being unusual, and I really am not. If I could tell you the number of people, if we're even just talking in terms of pure academics, like I said, I mean, for some things, maybe, English and languages, I definitely was, A, B plus student, because that's my thing. But I was definitely a middle of the class kind of a, person. I was just like, geography, okay, fine. If we must, right? If we must, okay, right? But so that's the kind of student I was. But the point is that I was surrounded by, when I tell you, people that are absolutely brilliant, like some people that you sit down and you're like, wow, like you are borderline, like you're a genius. But these were people that were just like next to me in class, regular people. And it was a classes and classes full of Black students, all excelling in different ways. And this was the norm. And so it was important to me to share that reality and share that part of the culture. And even in chapter 10, when I talk about more directly about soft living and where it came from and its genesis and how it started with Nigerian social media influencers, mentioning that, hey, guess what? There are people, despite what mainstream media would have us believe, there are people living their best lives, right? Fancy houses, more than one house, chauffeur, multiple nannies, multiple housekeepers, etc., etc., etc. And but again, for that's just regular life. It's not even anything exceptional, you know? So I wanted to make sure to switch up the narrative and go against some of the stereotypes that are presented about us. That was very important to me.
Yeah. I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
We are going to come up on time. So I want to
Real quick.
highlight a couple things that I think the listener should know about reading the book. You also cover intersectional identity very well in the book. So we didn't talk about that yet. And so for those tuning in who are going to read the book, and everyone should read the book, you also do a wonderful job of that. So that's definitely something that as a reader you can be on the lookout for. This is Hacking the Patriarchy. I always have to ask a patriarchal structure question, and I
That's
didn't
good.
ask any yet. So I want to close out with that. And then, of course, I always close out with the hacks. So I had the question. I'm going to have to read it because it didn't. So I say, you state from the beginning that this book is focused on Black women, but it is for everyone. Since this is Hacking the Patriarchy, how did you imagine men would be invited to partake in the book and what they might gain from it?
Oh, that is a good, beautiful, juicy question. I love it. My goal, in the same way that I have read numerous books, in fact, most of the books in my life were not quote unquote written with me in mind. I'm someone who grew up on Enid Blyton, put it that way, right? Very, very British, boarding school, etc., etc. And so I would like men, first of all, to be open to reading it. Men in general to be open to reading it, even though it's by the author is a straight woman. I would like men who are not Black to be open to reading it, because the same way that we can all go and watch movies about people of different races and cultures and gender identities and all of the things, it applies to books as well. I would like there to be a measure of openness, because if I can read Deepak Chopra, who is not neither my gender nor my culture nor any of that, but I've gained so much from his writings, right? And because I know somebody's going to come for me. No, I am not saying that I am Deepak Chopra. I'm not saying that at all. So before anybody comes for me,
It didn't even cross my mind. I hope it doesn't cross anyone else's.
Listen, that is from, that reaction from me is from years of being on social media and being on the receiving end of the weirdness that you will say one thing, you will say, wow, I really, really love apples. Someone's reaction in the comments. Oh, so you're saying that you hate oranges? What about avocados? Oh my gosh, you're a hateful person. Free the fruit. Right? You're like, I just wanted to have an orange or a mandarin for breakfast. That's all I would say. Yes, I really hope, on a serious note, I hope that there's a measure of openness that not only in spite of, but maybe because of my identity as a Black woman, from the Caribbean, who is, I am now, well, I'm gonna say in my middle age, I think I can say that, right? I like to say I'm in my auntie phase of life, and I am good with that. I love my rich, rested auntie era. But I have life lessons. I hope that men are open to learning and from a perspective of openness rather than defensiveness. I hope that they feel welcome, because I am allowed to target a specific audience, but also leave the door open via the book for others to enter. All are welcome. Men are welcome. And I hope that they receive the healing. I hope they receive the messages. I hope they feel loved. I hope they feel challenged to do better when and where they can. I hope that it inspires more men actually to take care of themselves, because to be honest, a lot of what, right? You know where I'm going. A lot of what we have to deal with is because the men won't go to therapy and get some help. But and indulge in some self-care, like, I don't know, put some lotion on your feet and relax yourself. Like, just relax a little bit. Let some of the stress go. Take a breath. And stop being so, sort of lashing out. Turn inward. Treat yourself with love and with gentleness and with care. That really is the invitation to Black women, but to everyone, and definitely to men as well. Because hacking the patriarchy, to me, it's about work that we do as women, but hacking the patriarchy has to start with the patriarchy. Right? It has to really, the core of the work is really the work that men have to do. And so my book is an offering to help them do some of that work.
Yeah. That is why I loved the question, because I do feel like there is something for everyone in this book. But I positioned that question because I feel like men could really benefit from it.
They need it. They need it.
They do. If nothing else, take some breath work.
Take some breath work. I'm just like, take a breath and meditate.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Space
like,
to exhale.
please take some time and make some space to exhale, for sure.
All right. I love to wrap the show up with 3 hacks for hacking the patriarchy. Because your book is about a space to exhale, but it has so many layers and rich moments, I will take any kind of hacks you have.
Any kind of hacks. One of the ones that we just spoke about is taking time daily. And this is regardless, like I said, this is regardless of gender, or gender, race, ethnicity, however you identify. Take time daily for self-care. And self-care does not necessarily have to mean I just said putting lotion on your feet or whatever. I'm not talking that is lovely. That is lovely. But I'm talking about really caring for yourself in little micro ways. For example, are you eating healthily? Are you having your lunch on time? Are you taking breaks frequently? Are you exercising? And even with exercising, I'm not saying that you have to go and join the gym and work out for 5 hours a day. Can you walk for 10 minutes? Right? Little micro moments to bring more peace and joy and care into your life. That is the main hack that I have for everyone. And also, yes, is this maybe a tad self-serving because now I am actually an author, but time to do slower activities like reading, right? Yes, my book, great, but I'm talking about other books. I have a whole library full of other people's books. Trust me, that is ever growing. Take time to do slow activities that don't involve your phone or TV screen. That is a big hat in terms of, and I'm speaking in terms of like soft living, self-care, getting past hustle culture. Just slow down. That's my big hack. Slow down and take a breath.
And if the listeners are stuck on what books to read, obviously they should read yours, but yours includes a ton of references to other great books.
Oh my gosh, yes. Listen, part of me, I believe that a phrase that I use in the book and that I grew up with is that everybody can eat, right?
Do you say
So
that?
yes. So do I want people to read my book? Absolutely. But there's so many other good books out there. And one of the ones that I absolutely love is Black People Breathe by Z. Clark. It's one of my favorite books. And to your point that you said earlier at the top of the show, that is a beautiful book. It is beautiful on the outside in terms of the aesthetics and also the content. It is absolutely stunning and beautiful and wonderful, and I'm a big fan, clearly. Um, Minder Hart, well, all of Minder Hart's books, but especially The Memo that's another great book for people, especially in terms of like career advice and so on. That's another wonderful book. Black Girl in Love with Herself by Trey Anthony. That's another favorite of mine. There's so many, any of Lovia Jai Jones's books, right? The list goes on. I had to limit it because of word count. I could have easily put 20 other books, but definitely go out. And I do want to challenge people. Um, Go out and definitely read other books. Read other books by Black people. Read other books by Black women, by authors who are Black women, because we are a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of the authors out there on the planet. And, I would like the club to be a little bit bigger, right? I would like there to be more authors out there who look like me and identify like me. And so read our books, support us all, write us reviews, do all the things, request our books in libraries, right? So that the industry and the world are aware that there is a market for us and for our books, and that our books have value.
Love that. That was actually a hack, a third hack, but it was also an ask. It was
Yes.
because you don't even constantly, okay, in full transparency, I live in North Carolina. I go to our library all the time and their books missing. Their books missing because they're not going to put them in the library. And I didn't even think to be like, hey, can you please order this book? I just assume that because of politics, we're not
Yes.
going to have that book.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
that's a great point. At least ask, like, hey, put this book in.
Ask. And the thing is, the more people ask, it starts to create a groundswell of, oh, maybe, the libraries and wherever else, oh, maybe we do need to have this book in stock, right? Or on the shelves. Or ask at your local indie bookstore, for example. There are just so many ways that people can support authors. And that's another part of activism that I'm going to get into, because I have now, I'm still in the middle of the journey, but I've now like lived it up. The book is out, it's published, but I learned so much. A lot of what I learned actually is how much of the weight of the book beyond the writing. You think that the main thing is the writing. The main thing is actually not the writing. The writing is absolutely the easiest part. All of the other ancillary stuff, the marketing and the promotion and getting the word out, that is the hard part. And people just assume that it happens by magic. No, the magic is the author, right? And authors do definitely need support. So it's an ask for me, but it is an ask for all authors, to be honest, especially authors who have marginalized identities. We definitely need active, continual vocal support.
All right. Well, the book is beautiful. This conversation has been gorgeous. For
Thank
those
you.
tuning in, how can they find you?
Okay, I am Now I'm trying to remember. You can find me on LinkedIn, Lisa Hurley. My book website is space2exhalebook.com. I'm on Instagram at the Lisa Hurley, TikTok at the Lisa Hurley. So I'm on all the socials. I think I'm pretty easy to find, I hope. And so, yeah, just go to space2exhalebook.com, and that's where you'll find most of my content. And yeah, just, look for me. And also, when you're on LinkedIn, drop in, make a comment, whatever. Like, I respond. It's very rare for me not to respond. So I will absolutely respond and interact with you and whatever. So, drop by and say hi.
I'm going to put all of that in the show notes, starting off with your website so people can buy the book first and then connect. Lisa, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me about your wonderful, wonderful book, Space to Exhale.
You too. This was absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you inviting me on, and I really enjoyed this entire conversation. And thank you for pouring into me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. For all the juicy deets on this episode, be sure to check out our show notes or give us a holler on Instagram at Hacking the Patriarchy Podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support this podcast, don't be shy. Please share it with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, if you'd like to lend your personal support, please take a moment to tell the world about it with a review on your favorite streaming platform. We'd be forever grateful. Tune in again soon to enjoy a brand new episode of the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. And until next time, keep on hacking, my friends.